There's a saying more people should live by. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Perhaps the makers of these 25 reboots, remakes, and sequels should have thought the same thing. It seems like these days, movie studios are less willing to take risks on original creative ideas. Instead, they'd rather use the same stories, the same characters, and the same properties that we've seen dozens of times. Gone are the days of creative storytelling. Now, if an idea can't be made into a 7-part franchise, it's not worth the studio's time. There are times when sequels, reboots, and remakes work well and are received well, but these are not those times. Today, we look at lesser films. I'm Mike with List 25, and here are 25 reboots, remakes, and sequels that never should have been touched. 25. Ghostbusters, 2016. On paper, the idea of rebooting Ghostbusters to start a franchise seemed like a good idea. With a decent main cast, Ghostbusters had the potential to grasp a little of the magic of the original. But things quickly took a turn for the worse when the director of the original Ghostbusters, Ivan Reitman, stepped down after the death of Harold Ramis. Things were then made even worse when the movie studio announced that the story of the original films would be ignored, causing mass backlash from fans of the original. Upon release, Ghostbusters was criticized for poor writing, poor direction, and poor acting. The jokes fell flat, the story failed to make sense, and the performances from the entire cast made this movie feel more like a 2-hour Saturday Night Live sketch. 24. The Mummy, 2017. Universal found success once by remaking The Mummy with Brendan Fraser, so why not try again? This time around, Universal was rebooting The Mummy to begin their own shared universe dubbed the Dark Universe. The Mummy tried so hard to start a shared universe that it lacked the proper storytelling to even warrant a sequel. Universal was too concerned with what future movies they would make that they forgot to make The Mummy decent. 23. Jaws 2. Jaws was a defining movie in the thriller genre. Its excellent script, directing, effects, and soundtrack all came together to create an American classic, as well as the summer blockbuster. In a time when sequels weren't nearly as common as they are today, it was risky to try to cash in on a popular film's success, but that didn't stop them from making Jaws 2. Over the years, Jaws 2 has received mixed reviews, but when it first opened at the box office, critics gave it overwhelmingly negative reviews. It's largely accepted nowadays as a decent sequel that had no chance of living up to the classic. 22. Jurassic Park sequels and Jurassic World. While we all enjoy shutting off our minds to sit down and watch dinosaurs eat people, it's important to remember that the first Jurassic Park was a massive achievement in film. Its visual effects still hold up today, and its masterful use of suspense make it an instant classic. The sequels and subsequent reboot to the Jurassic Park franchise just don't do justice to that first journey on Isla Nublar. They lack the suspense and scientific approach to the writing that made Jurassic Park so good to begin with. While the sequels are still fun to watch, we feel they diminish the overall quality of that first movie. 21. Psycho. Psycho is a masterpiece and a true horror classic that still holds up to this day. So when director Gus Van Sant announced that he would be making a remake of the movie, fans were obviously upset. If a remake is being made, it should be so that you can bring new ideas and themes to the project. So it confused many people when Gus Van Sant's version was a literal remake. Van Sant filmed a shot-for-shot remake of the original Psycho. What was the point in remaking the movie if you're just gonna make the same movie? The remake did poorly and Van Sant received heavy criticism for making it. 20. Tron Legacy. When the sequel to Tron was announced, longtime fans of the original classic rejoiced. But those same people were ultimately disappointed by the movie itself. The film often felt slow, and the complicated story made it difficult for audiences to follow the plot. While an update to the style and overall look of the Tron world was welcome and made for impressive visuals and fun action scenes, it wasn't enough to curb the disappointment of fans of the first film. Ultimately, Tron Legacy just couldn't live up to the legacy that Tron would leave behind. 19. Robocop 2014. Despite having an all-star cast of actors and a sleek, impressive visual style, this remake of the 80s classic Robocop bombed at the box office. Fans of the original were attracted to its violent, fast-paced action, satirical take on media, and interesting take on mortality. Robocop 2014 doesn't achieve the same feats. It removes the heart of the original movie to make more room for action. The largest factor to Robocop's failure was that audiences didn't ask for Robocop to be remade and didn't want it to be. 18. Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2. The Blair Witch Project has become somewhat divisive in recent years. Some think it's a great concept that's executed in a disturbing and frightening way. Others find the acting to be poor, the story hard to follow, and the camera work distracting. Needless to say, it's gotten a mixed reception, and Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2, certainly didn't help its reputation. Book of Shadows is painful to watch if you're a fan of the first, and unbearable if you're not. Its inconsistencies constantly confuse the audience, the plot and writing is laughably bad, and the acting makes the cast of the first film look like Oscar performances. What's Book of Shadows' biggest sin? Never, not once, do they explain what the Book of Shadows is. 17. Superman Returns. Superman Returns was a failed attempt to cash in on the nostalgia of the original Superman movies starring Christopher Reeve. Reeve's performance was the perfect portrayal of Superman and Clark Kent, which gave new star Brandon Routh big shoes to fill. While Routh's performance was an admirable one, it didn't hold a candle to Christopher Reeve's Superman. 16. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory does do a decent enough job at updating some aspects of the story. The supporting cast is written more realistically, and as always, Tim Burton's design style makes the factory look like a magical and mysterious place. Unfortunately, Johnny Depp's portrayal of Willy Wonka lacks the subtlety of the role that Gene Wilder brought years before. But Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory was, and still is, a classic. Its imaginative design, memorable songs, and whimsical writing captured the hearts of children and adults alike. Remaking it did little to improve upon a movie that was already beloved by millions. 15. Chronicles of Riddick. Chronicles of Riddick is the sequel to the small independent film Pitch Black, which starred a young Vin Diesel. Pitch Black was an interesting sci-fi thriller that didn't do well at the box office, but gained quite the cult following. It relied on character, suspense, and a small but engaging amount of action. With a bigger budget, Chronicles of Riddick aimed to be a fully fledged action movie. As an action movie, it performs well enough with some fun action. But as a sequel to Pitch Black, Chronicles of Riddick ends up being a disappointment. 14. Halloween, 2007. John Carpenter's Halloween is a classic slasher film that needs no improvements. Could be less scary though, that's just my opinion. Michael Myers was the silent, sinister serial killer that would inspire a generation of slasher villains. Rob Zombie's 2007 remake of Halloween took a deeper look at the character and expanded on Michael's backstory. The first 40 minutes of the movie were dedicated to a case study on Michael Myers. We see what his home life was like as a child, and we see him being put in a mental institution after he brutally murders his family. The case study may be an interesting take on the character, but it's largely unwarranted. We don't need, nor do we want to know why Myers does the things he does. All we need to know is that he kills. 13. An extremely goofy movie. Perhaps it's 90s nostalgia, but for whatever reason, people have shown their appreciation and love for a Goofy movie recently. The Disney movie features Goofy going on a cross-country road trip with his son Max. Naturally, hijinks ensue. What people don't talk about is a Goofy movie's sequel. An extremely goofy movie. It features Max leaving for college with his friends, but when Goofy gets fired from his job, he has to go to the same school as Max to get a degree. As far as sequels go, it does its job admirably, but it doesn't have the same heart and charm that the first movie has. It's still enjoyable, but just not as good.
12.
Total Recall, 2012. The original Total Recall starring Arnold Schwarzenegger was a big hit with sci-fi fans. Schwarzenegger's character Douglas Quaid goes to a company that gives people virtual vacations. Quaid selects a trip to Mars as a secret agent, but as he sits in the chair getting prepared for the procedure, it's revealed that he actually is a secret agent. Throughout the film, he goes to Mars and saves the planet. It consistently has you wondering if the whole movie is actually the virtual vacation being played out, but it never gives a definitive answer. The remake starring Colin Farrell removes significant plot points, which results in a lacking story, and the characters feel less realistic. The updated style and visual effects are an improvement on the 1990 original, but that's where the improvements end. Total Recall 2012 does a poor job trying to improve and update an excellent original.
11.
Fantastic Beasts. We all love the Harry Potter franchise. It captured us as children and continues to engage through adulthood. Not many movies can capture the literal and metaphorical magic that Harry Potter did. We'll take any chance to dive back into the wizarding world to feel even a little bit of the same magic. Unfortunately, the Fantastic Beasts franchise has failed to do so as of yet. It feels like a shallow attempt to make money off the success of Harry Potter. The main character Newt feels overshadowed by an overarching plot that has little to do with him, and the supporting cast doesn't hold a candle to the likes of the original franchise. Sorry, Newt.
10.
Ghostbusters II. How can you follow up Ghostbusters? It's one of the greatest comedy movies ever made. When talks were in place to make a sequel, even the cast of the first film weren't sure if that was the right direction to take. Maybe those concerns were justified. In the end, Ghostbusters 2 was only okay. It was fun to see the Ghostbusters again, but it was easy to tell that lightning wouldn't strike twice. Ghostbusters 2 failed to make the same clever writing and witty humor the first movie achieved. Ultimately, it would do so-so at the box office and disappoint fans of the first film.
9.
The Hobbit. The Lord of the Rings trilogy was one of the best and biggest events in film history. The three films are still regarded as masterpieces to this day, so it made sense to adapt Tolkien's book The Hobbit into a movie. Fans seemed to agree at first, as The Hobbit was a fun, light-hearted fantasy book that would be enjoyable to see on the big screen. However, fans soured on the idea after it was announced that the book would be stretched to make 3 movies. The production of the films was rushed, and it showed in the final product. While they can be fun for fantasy fans to watch, the Hobbit trilogy tarnishes what was otherwise a perfect trilogy in The Lord of the Rings.
8.
The Crow, City of Angels. The Crow had a unique and dark story that was executed perfectly. Brandon Lee's performance as Eric Draven was one of his best, and also his last. The adaptation of the original comic was perfect, and no one wanted or needed another movie. But they made one anyway. While it could have been decent, the company behind the film, Miramax, wanted it to be as close to the original film as possible. It had large portions of the movie cut to feel even more like the first Crow movie. City of Angels came off far too much like a poor remake than an interesting sequel.
7.
Son of the Mask. Son of the Mask was the long-awaited sequel to the hilarious Jim Carrey movie The Mask. After staying in development for years and Jim Carrey turning down the offer to reprise his role, the movie seemed doomed to fail. And fail it did. The reception of the film was almost universally negative, with most critics claiming that Son of the Mask was painfully unfunny and sorely missing the presence of Jim Carrey. That's not to say Son of the Mask didn't win any awards, though. It managed to win Worst Remake or Sequel, Worst Actor, and Worst Couple.
6.
Escape from LA. Escape from LA was John Carpenter's follow-up to the successful and widely loved Escape from New York. Kurt Russell reprises his role as Snake Plissken and is actually given some welcome character development. Where Escape from LA fails is its preposterous scenarios, such as surfing on lava and a basketball competition to the death. It's moments like these that make Escape from LA feel like a joke. It ends up feeling too much like a spoof of the original, but too serious to be treated as such.
5.
Planet of the Apes, 2001. Yet another Tim Burton remake that failed to live up to the original movie. Planet of the Apes 2001 takes the idea of apes taking over the Earth and changes most aspects of it. The movie stars Mark Wahlberg, who plays an astronaut who ends up being sucked through a wormhole and lands on a planet ruled by apes. The divergence from the source material made fans of the classic upset. Wahlberg's performance does little to help, and Tim Roth's performance as the main villain was far too over the top to be taken seriously. The poorly written story and the laughably dumb ending led Planet of the Apes to fail at the box office and disappoint moviegoers.
4.
Matrix sequels. The Matrix was a huge success when it was released in 2003. Making a sequel was a no-brainer. Surely it would be successful. But the ending of the first Matrix movie left little places to go with its story. The film told its story well over the course of 3 acts and had a satisfying and precise conclusion. So fans were skeptical when the sequel Matrix Reloaded was announced. While its sequel, Matrix Reloaded, was an even bigger hit, becoming the largest grossing rated R movie, it was argued that the sequel didn't need to be made to make The Matrix any more satisfying. By the time the third installment in the trilogy came out, the consensus was that the Matrix sequels were disappointing and unnecessary.
3.
Fantastic Four, 2015. Fantastic Four marks the 4th attempt to make a Fantastic Four movie successful, but much like Fantastic Four movies before it, the film did poorly. Fantastic Four was plagued with behind-the-scenes issues from day one. The director, Josh Trank, had vastly different ideas for the movie than what Fox Studios wanted, which resulted in days upon days of reshoots. Infighting between the main cast and the director did nothing to help the production either. Josh Trank even said on record that he wasn't happy with the film and that people shouldn't go see it. Movie critics have even said that Fantastic Four should be taught in film schools as an example of how not to make a movie. That's a little harsh, although it's true.
2.
Disney live-action remakes. Disney has gotten the idea that everyone would like to see live-action remakes of their beloved animated features. They're sadly mistaken. The issue here is that these movies never add enough to the original to warrant a remake. They often come off as the same movie, but without that Disney creativity that made them so special to begin with. And with the remake of Aladdin on the horizon, they don't seem to be stopping anytime soon.
1.
Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Disappointment is an understatement for the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Indiana Jones fans were devastated after seeing this 4th installment in the Indiana Jones series. It failed at everything it set out to do. The plot was confusing, the writing was terrible, the new characters fell flat, and the action scenes were completely ridiculous. Fans are still upset that this was the way that Indiana Jones' story would end. There have been talks of making a 5th movie, but Crystal Skull did so bad that fans are almost scared to see what another Indiana Jones movie might be. So, which remakes, reboots, or sequels do you wish had never been made, and why? Let us know in the comments below, or tweet your answer to us at List25.
Alright, so, question.
What's up?
Disney is making all these live-action remakes.
Lion King's not live action.
Right, whatever. So, which movie would you actually like them to see remake?
Live action Toy Story, no.
Live action Toy Story. Okay, Pixar doesn't count. Pixar doesn't count.
I'm kind of excited for the Aladdin one just to see Aladdin.
Oh no, I mean one that's not even been announced yet.
You're gonna have to jump cut here.
I know.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm trying to think what they haven't done. They've already done 101 Dalmatians, which is a good one. Hugh Laurie.
Oh yeah.
Robin Hood.
Robin Hood, like with a real fox.
Maybe.
Okay, that'd be cool.
I feel like if anyone could pull off Robin Hood, it'd be Disney. Every other attempt at Robin Hood has kind of sucked.
I love the Disney's Robin Hood.
It's so good.
And it's used with a lot of recycled
Maybe
animation.
if they did an actual non-Nick Cage Sorcerer in the Stone.
Okay.
Sword in the Stone.
Sword in the Stone.
Sorcerer in the Stone. Just jam
Wait.
Merlin in there.
Don't you mean Sorcerer's Apprentice?
Right, but that was supposed to be Sword in the Stone.
Was it?
I think so.
I think maybe there was. It's been a while since I saw that movie.
He was Merlin, right?
No, I think he just played a wizard.
No.
It could have. Either way.
Then yeah, just do Sword in the Stone.
I would really like to see...
Fox and the Hound?
No, God, no! What is wrong with you? I think I'd actually really like to
Treasure
see...
Planet. Robin, that one's for you. I think Robin said he'd like to see a Treasure Planet.
I've heard that. I've actually heard a lot of people, well, a few people say...
He wrote this list, by the way, that's why I'm...
Maybe Lilo and Stitch. I would love to see
Oh,
a
God.
CGI Stitch.
Oh, that'd be terrible.
Provided they get the
That would be-
original voice actor back, because you know he's only ever done Stitch.
That would be so bad.
That's the only voice acting he's ever done, and any film credit that he has.
I don't like it.
I'm also excited to see what they do with Peter Pan. Naturally, the Disney Peter Pan is like one of my least favorite adaptations of Peter Pan, but I still like it. So it could be cool to
I don't
update
think if
it.
there's any others.
Well, I'll let you think about that before I cut.
Pocahontas?
Pocahontas?
Maybe.
Okay.
Just let's keep going with the Disney Renaissance era. Hercules, Pocahontas, Notre Dame.
I think that they're going to end it all with Snow White.
Think so?
Yeah.
Enjoying our lists? Be sure to click that subscribe button on the bottom right and the notification bell so you don't miss out on new ones every Monday through Friday. Share them with friends and help us consistently conciliate curiosity. And if you want even more lists, check out these videos here or just head to our website at list25.com.